Have you ever noticed how difficult it has become to focus on a single task for more than a few minutes? How your mind constantly craves stimulation, jumping from notification to notification like a starved animal hunting for its next meal? How, at the end of most days, you feel mentally exhausted despite not accomplishing anything meaningful? You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not lacking willpower. You're living through the greatest assault on human attention in history. And most people don't even realize they're under attack. Right now, as you watch this video, algorithms are analyzing your behavior, measuring how long you watch, what makes you click, what keeps you scrolling. Billion-dollar companies have hired teams of neuroscientists, behavioral psychologists, and data scientists for one purpose: to capture and monetize your attention. They've turned your focus into their product and your distraction into their profit. But this isn't some modern phenomenon. The battle for human attention, the war for mental control, has been going on for centuries, and nobody understood it better than Niccolò Machiavelli. 500 years ago, Machiavelli wrote about how power works in the real world. He understood that the greatest victories aren't won through force, but through influence. That the most effective control isn't physical restraint, but mental occupation. He knew that whoever controls what people think about controls what people do. And in our age of infinite scroll and algorithmic feeds, his insights have become prophecy. Today, I'm going to show you how the same principles Machiavelli identified in Renaissance politics are being used to hijack your mind. How your attention has become the most valuable resource on Earth. And most importantly, how to recognize when you're being manipulated and reclaim control over your own consciousness. If you've ever wondered why you feel scattered, anxious, and unable to concentrate on what truly matters, this video will give you answers. Because understanding the game is the first step to refusing to play it. The currency of consciousness. Let me start with a truth that will change how you see everything. Your attention is not infinite. It's not renewable. Every moment you spend focused on something is a moment you can never get back. Your attention is your life, measured in the currency of consciousness. And right now, that currency is being stolen from you at an unprecedented rate. Machiavelli understood that power flows to those who can direct the collective focus of the masses. In his time, this meant controlling information through churches, town criers, and printed pamphlets. Today, it means controlling the digital spaces where you spend your mental life. The smartphone in your pocket, the social media apps you check compulsively, the streaming services that autoplay the next episode. These aren't neutral tools. They're sophisticated attention capture devices. The companies that built these systems studied your brain more thoroughly than you've ever studied it yourself. They know that humans are wired to respond to unpredictable rewards. So they created infinite scroll feeds that deliver random bursts of interesting content. They know that social validation triggers dopamine release. So they gamified interaction through likes, shares, and comments. They know that fear and outrage create engagement. So their algorithms prioritize content that makes you angry or afraid. This isn't accidental. This is engineered. Former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris has revealed that tech companies employ what they call persuasive design, techniques borrowed from casinos and behavioral psychology to make their products as addictive as possible. They track your eye movements, measure your scrolling patterns, and A/B test different features to see which ones keep you hooked longest. But here's what Machiavelli would recognize immediately. This isn't just about selling you products or showing you ads. This is about something far more valuable, shaping your reality. Because whoever controls your attention controls your perception of what's important, what's possible, and what you should be afraid of. Think about your daily mental diet. How much of what fills your consciousness comes from sources that profit from your distraction? How much of your emotional energy is spent reacting to events you have no control over? Problems that don't directly affect your life? Dramas that exist primarily to generate engagement? You're being farmed. Your attention is the crop, your emotional reactions are the harvest, and your behavioral data is the product being sold. And most people don't even realize they're living on a plantation of the mind, the architecture of distraction. Let's examine how this mental manipulation actually works, because understanding the mechanism is crucial to defending against it. The modern distraction economy operates on several psychological principles that Machiavelli would have immediately recognized as tools of control. First is the fragmentation of focus. In Machiavelli's time, rulers understood that a population focused on a single issue could become dangerous. United attention leads to unified action. So effective rulers learned to scatter attention across multiple smaller concerns, keeping people busy with local problems while larger systems operated unchallenged. Today's digital environment does this automatically. Your phone doesn't just give you one thing to think about. It gives you dozens of simultaneous streams of information. Email notifications, social media updates, news alerts, text messages, app notifications, calendar reminders. Each one pulls your attention in a different direction, making sustained focus on any single task nearly impossible. This fragmentation creates what researchers call continuous partial attention, a state where you're always monitoring multiple information streams but never fully engaged with any of them. You feel busy, but you're not productive. You feel informed, but you lack deep understanding. You feel connected, but you're actually isolated from your own thoughts. The second principle is emotional hijacking. Machiavelli knew that people in emotional states make predictable decisions. Fear makes them seek security. Anger makes them seek enemies. Desire makes them seek immediate gratification. Modern attention merchants have weaponized this knowledge. Social media algorithms don't show you content randomly. They analyze what emotional states generate the most engagement from you personally, then feed you more content designed to trigger those same states. If anger keeps you scrolling, you'll see more outrageous content. If envy keeps you clicking, you'll see more lifestyle content that makes you feel inadequate. If fear keeps you reading, you'll see more threatening news. You think you're choosing what to consume, but the algorithm is choosing what to show you, based on what it knows will capture your attention most effectively. You're not browsing. You're being programmed. The third principle is the destruction of boredom. Machiavelli understood that people who are comfortable with solitude are harder to control. They have time to think, to reflect, to question. They're not dependent on external stimulation for their sense of well-being. Modern technology has systematically eliminated boredom from human experience. Every empty moment, waiting in line, sitting in traffic, walking down the street, can now be filled with digital stimulation. Your phone ensures you never have to be alone with your thoughts. You never have to sit in silence. You never have to experience the discomfort of understimulation. But boredom isn't empty time. It's thinking time. It's processing time. It's the mental space where creativity happens, where insights emerge, where you actually digest your experiences and figure out what they mean. When you eliminate boredom, you eliminate the capacity for deep thought. The illusion of choice. Here's where this gets really insidious. The system is designed to make you feel like you're in control while systematically removing your actual agency. You think you're choosing what to watch, read, and think about. But those choices are being curated by algorithms that know more about your psychological patterns than you do. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the difference between apparent freedom and actual freedom. He understood that the most effective control doesn't feel like control at all. People who believe they're making free choices are less likely to resist than people who recognize they're being coerced. This is exactly how the attention economy operates. You're not being forced to check your phone. You're being prompted to check it by carefully timed notifications delivered when you're most likely to respond. You're not being forced to watch certain videos. You're being shown recommendations based on psychological profiles that predict what you'll find irresistible. The recommendation engines that govern your digital experience aren't neutral. They're optimization systems designed to maximize specific outcomes, usually time spent on platform and data generated. They learn your vulnerabilities and exploit them. They discover your triggers and pull them. They identify your weaknesses and target them. But they do this gradually, subtly, in ways that preserve your illusion of choice. You never feel manipulated because each individual decision feels voluntary. You chose to click that link. You chose to watch that video. You chose to read that article. But the menu of choices was curated specifically for you by systems designed to predict and influence your behavior. Think about your last hour of phone usage. How many of those interactions were initiated by you versus prompted by notifications? How many of the things you consumed were things you actively sought out versus things that were recommended to you? How much of your attention was directed by your conscious intentions versus captured by external systems? The uncomfortable truth is that most of your mental life is now being directed by algorithms that understand your psychology better than you understand it yourself. You think you're driving, but you're actually being driven. The cost of constant connection. What does this constant state of distraction actually cost you? The price isn't just measured in wasted time, though that cost is enormous. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day and spends over 7 hours looking at screens. That's nearly half of your waking life consumed by digital interaction. But the deeper cost is psychological and spiritual. When your attention is constantly fragmented, you lose the capacity for what psychologists call deep work, sustained focus on cognitively demanding tasks. You lose the ability to think through complex problems, to engage with challenging ideas, to develop expertise in anything that requires sustained concentration. Your relationships suffer because you're never fully present with other people. Even when you're physically together, part of your mind is always monitoring your devices, waiting for the next notification, anticipating the next distraction. You're together but not together, connected but not connected. Your creativity withers because creativity requires sustained attention and tolerance for uncertainty. The creative process involves long periods of apparent non-productivity, time spent thinking, wondering, exploring ideas that might lead nowhere. But if you're constantly seeking stimulation, you never allow this process to unfold. Most importantly, you lose touch with yourself. The constant stream of external input drowns out your inner voice. You stop knowing what you actually think about things because you're always consuming other people's thoughts. You stop knowing what you actually want because you're always being shown what you should want. You stop knowing who you actually are because you're always performing for invisible audiences on social platforms. Machiavelli understood that people who don't know themselves are easy to control. They lack internal guidance systems, so they're constantly seeking external validation and direction. They become dependent on others to tell them what to value, what to fear, what to desire. This dependence makes them predictable and manipulable. The weaponization of information. But the assault on your attention isn't just about selling you products or keeping you on platforms. It's also about shaping your worldview in ways that serve political and economic interests that may not align with your own well-being. Machiavelli wrote that controlling information is more powerful than controlling armies. In his era, this meant controlling what news reached the people and how it was framed. Today, it means controlling what information you see in your feeds and how that information is presented. The same algorithmic systems that learn your consumer preferences also learn your political inclinations, your social anxieties, your cultural biases. They can then selectively expose you to information that reinforces certain viewpoints, while filtering out information that might challenge those viewpoints. This creates what researchers call filter bubbles, personalized information ecosystems that gradually separate people into different realities. But it goes deeper than just showing you information that confirms your existing beliefs. The algorithms can actually shape what you believe by controlling the sequence and context in which you encounter information. They can make fringe ideas seem mainstream by surrounding them with related content. They can make mainstream ideas seem fringe by associating them with extreme positions. This isn't necessarily coordinated manipulation by human actors, though that certainly happens. Often, it's the emergent behavior of optimization systems that have been programmed to maximize engagement. Controversial content generates engagement. Extreme content generates engagement. Content that makes people angry or afraid generates engagement. So the algorithms naturally evolve to promote more controversial, extreme, and emotionally provocative material. The result is a gradual radicalization of discourse. Not because people are becoming more extreme, but because extreme content is more visible and moderate content is filtered out. You're not seeing a representative sample of human opinion. You're seeing a curated collection of the most engaging human opinions, which tend to be the most polarizing. This distorts your perception of reality. You start to believe that the world is more divided, more dangerous, more chaotic than it actually is. You start to see other people as more extreme, more threatening, more different from you than they actually are. This perception shapes your behavior, your voting patterns, your social interactions, your mental health. The psychology of resistance. Understanding how this system works is the first step toward resisting it. But resistance requires more than just intellectual knowledge. It requires developing new habits, new relationships with technology, and most importantly, new relationships with your own attention. The first principle of resistance is awareness. You cannot defend against manipulation you don't recognize. Start paying attention to your attention. Notice when you're being pulled into your phone without a specific purpose. Notice when you open apps unconsciously. Notice when you find yourself scrolling without remembering how you started. This awareness practice isn't about judgment. It's about data collection. You're gathering intelligence about your own behavioral patterns so you can make conscious choices about where to direct your mental energy. The second principle is intentionality. Instead of allowing your attention to be captured by whatever shouts loudest, decide in advance what deserves your focus. Create specific times for specific activities. Check email at designated times rather than responding to notifications. Choose what media to consume rather than consuming whatever the algorithm suggests. This requires what Machiavelli would call strategic thinking. You need to identify your actual goals and priorities, then align your attention with those priorities instead of letting it be scattered by systems designed to profit from your distraction. The third principle is creating boundaries. Your attention is finite and valuable. Treat it accordingly. Just as you wouldn't leave your wallet open on a busy street, don't leave your mind open to every influence that wants to manipulate it. This means turning off notifications for non-essential apps. It means creating phone-free zones and times in your life. It means choosing your information sources consciously instead of passively consuming whatever appears in your feeds. Reclaiming mental sovereignty. The ultimate goal isn't to reject technology entirely. Technology can be a powerful tool for human flourishing when used intentionally. The goal is to reclaim your role as the director of your own consciousness rather than being a passive consumer of whatever content generates the most advertising revenue. This requires what I call mental sovereignty. The recognition that your attention is your most precious resource and you have both the right and the responsibility to protect it from those who would exploit it for their own purposes. Mental sovereignty means choosing your inputs consciously. Instead of mindlessly scrolling through feeds curated by engagement algorithms, actively seek out information sources that serve your actual interests and goals. Read books instead of articles. Listen to long-form podcasts instead of short-form videos. Engage with ideas that challenge you instead of content that simply confirms what you already believe. It means creating space for reflection. Schedule regular time for silence, for thinking, for processing your experiences without additional input. This is where insight happens. This is where you develop your own opinions instead of absorbing other people's opinions. It means cultivating deep focus. Choose important projects and give them sustained attention. Practice working on single tasks for extended periods without distraction. Redevelop your capacity for what psychologists call flow states, periods of complete absorption in meaningful activity. Most importantly, it means remembering that your attention is your life. Every moment of focus you give to something trivial is a moment of life you can never recover. Every hour spent in passive consumption is an hour not spent in active creation. Every day lost to distraction is a day not spent building the life you actually want. The power of presence. Machiavelli wrote that the wise man does at once what the fool does finally. The fool eventually recognizes that their attention has been captured and exploited, but only after years of mental slavery. The wise person recognizes the threat early and takes action to preserve their cognitive freedom. You are living through a historical moment. Future generations will look back at this period as the time when humanity first faced the challenge of artificial intelligence systems designed to manipulate human behavior at scale. How you respond to this challenge will determine not just your own well-being, but the kind of world you leave for those who come after you. The choice is binary. Either you take conscious control of your attention, or others will control it for you. Either you decide what deserves your mental energy, or algorithms will decide for you. Either you direct your own consciousness, or you become a passive consumer of experiences designed to generate profit for others. This isn't just a personal decision. It's a political act. Every person who reclaims their attention from the manipulation systems is a person who can think independently, act intentionally, and contribute meaningfully to society. Every person who breaks free from the distraction economy becomes capable of deeper relationships, more creative work, and more thoughtful participation in democracy. The attention merchants want you scattered, reactive, and dependent on their systems for stimulation and validation. They profit when you're anxious, distracted, and constantly seeking external input. Your mental freedom is their economic threat. But when you develop the ability to focus deeply, think independently, and choose your inputs consciously, you become dangerous to systems that depend on your unconsciousness. You become someone who cannot be easily manipulated, predicted, or controlled. The path forward. So how do you actually implement these principles in a world that's designed to undermine them? How do you create islands of focus in an ocean of distraction? Start small, but start today. Choose 1 hour of your day to be completely free from digital input. No phone, no internet, no screens. Use this time for thinking, planning, creating, or simply being present with your own consciousness. Notice how difficult this is at first. Notice the anxiety, the boredom, the compulsive urge to check something. These reactions are evidence of how deeply the manipulation has penetrated your nervous system. Gradually expand these periods of digital silence. Create phone-free meals, phone-free bedrooms, phone-free conversations. Rediscover what it feels like to be completely present in your own life instead of constantly monitoring other people's lives. Choose your information diet as carefully as you choose your food diet. Just as you wouldn't eat exclusively junk food and expect to feel healthy, you can't consume exclusively shallow, emotionally manipulative content and expect to think clearly. Seek out sources that challenge you intellectually, rather than simply triggering emotional responses. Practice deep work. Choose projects that matter to you and give them sustained, uninterrupted attention. Redevelop your capacity for concentration. This is like training a muscle that has been weakened by years of distraction. Most importantly, remember that this is a practice, not a destination. You're not trying to achieve perfect focus or complete independence from technology. You're trying to shift the balance of power back toward conscious choice and away from unconscious manipulation. The stakes. The battle for your attention is the defining struggle of our time. It's not just about productivity or mental health, though those are important. It's about whether human consciousness remains free or becomes a commodity to be bought and sold by the highest bidder. If the attention merchants win, we'll become a species of digital livestock, managed by algorithms that understand our psychological patterns better than we understand ourselves. Our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors will be increasingly predictable and controllable. We'll experience the illusion of freedom while living under invisible chains. But if enough people reclaim their mental sovereignty, we can create a different future. A future where technology serves human flourishing instead of exploiting human psychology. Where artificial intelligence augments human capability instead of replacing human agency. Where connection enhances presence instead of destroying it. Machiavelli understood that freedom isn't given. It's taken, and it's defended. Your attention is your freedom, and no one is going to defend it for you. The systems that profit from your distraction have billion-dollar budgets, sophisticated technology, and teams of experts working around the clock to capture your consciousness. But you have something they don't have. You have the capacity for awareness, for choice, for resistance. You have the ability to recognize manipulation and refuse to participate in it. You have the power to direct your own attention toward what actually matters to you. The question is, will you use that power? Or will you continue to give it away to systems that see your mind as territory to be conquered and exploited? The choice is yours, but you have to make it consciously, intentionally, every single day. Because in the attention wars, neutrality is surrender and distraction is defeat. Your mind is worth fighting for. Your focus is worth protecting. Your consciousness is worth preserving. The battle begins now. If this message resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in this analysis, write in the comments, "I choose focus." Let's create a movement of people who refuse to be mental livestock, who insist on being conscious directors of their own attention. And remember, the next video in this series explores how to build specific systems and habits that protect your consciousness from these manipulation techniques, because understanding the problem is only the first step. The real work is in building a life that serves your actual goals instead of someone else's profit margins. Your attention is your life. Protect it accordingly.